Hey guys, it's Matt. I was thinking about this the other day. Is this the simplest proof of all of our eternal existence? We don't need any more information. But it's nice to get. It's nice to get information that equates to something 1,000 times more, well, millions of times more important than, say, winning the lotto. Any sort of proof of eternal existence, I'll keep taking as much as this reality shows me, even though we don't need any more. But the notion is, and I want to talk about something real quick about this, these storms that they try to scare everybody with. The notion that could a being that was created from nothing, that came from Stephen Hawking's nothing, that will be nothing, if you put nothing on either side of the bookends, then how can you have a being inside the bookends worried about its own existence? It's just not possible. It creates a chain that can't exist. We'll talk about it in a minute. But real quick first about last night's storm. Fromers again tried to warn us that these weather people are complete frauds that do the bidding of the Not frequency and radio station. Tried to kind of attach last night's storm to the carnage on Tuesday. Didn't they try it? Those sneaky bastards. They tried to scare the heck out of us that, it's going to be like Tuesday. Tuesday was bad. I tried to drive out 3 times yesterday. Had to drive back to my house, was blocked off every single time. Now, I could have gone way down around, and there was one way out, but it wasn't, just for a Twinkie or whatever I was going out for, it wasn't worth it. 3 times got blocked off. Tuesday was awful, okay, but they tried to do it again. They tried to make it seem like it was, it's not going to be the same as Tuesday, but it has the same characteristics. And luckily for us, it's going to move through a little quicker, but it's still going to have high winds. And everybody still has the stress of Tuesday. The generators around here just went down, just stopped. People just down the way here, not right here, down the way, they just got their electricity back. I think it was yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon from Tuesday night. So then they tried to, the weather people aren't in on it. They're not getting secret orders from the men in black. They just do it. The people on the frequency carry out what the Not wants. They try to scare the shit out of us. And I thought, this is bullshit. This storm's not going to be much. You can tell almost when they show you on the news at 6:00 the computer model. If it's not real organized with a certain rotation, it's just a green and yellow blob that moves through. It can't possibly pack that much energy to push over trees and everything. But they tried. I watched CBS 3. I figured I have to watch this because I have to get somewhat prepared. Have to fill what I call Matapots, a gigantic Home Depot bucket that I have to pour into the toilet so it flushes. There's no public water. It's all well. So you lose that electricity. Everything goes down. Make sure my well holding tank is full because then I can still get a little bit of water out when I need it for a while and it's not completely empty. So I had to watch. Of course, you want to get all your cell phones charged. It's not going to be as bad as Tuesday, but make sure you have backup on this. Make sure you're ready to run to a hotel room. We didn't say that. Make sure all your devices are charged and all this stuff. Like here, there could be more power outages. And everyone's like, oh my God, you know what? I said, this guy's a fraud. You can see he doesn't believe this, but then why is he pushing it on us? Sir, you should be ashamed of yourself. Matt, get to it. That's not why we came here. Yeah, for stoves, I'm going to do another stove video, maybe even today. So I'm not going to do a stove video in lieu of what we do here, but I might add it on. I'm not going to start a whole new channel for one stove video a month. So I might actually do that later today or tomorrow. It did another test that worked out. But regarding the stoves, I said to myself, I'm done playing with toys, with these little tests and these little half bricks or whatever, half segments, which is just one brick up, one brick over. It's time to build something for real downstairs. And if it works, it works. If not, then I'm going to make the mortar such where I can just break the bricks down. You're going to put in a month and a half of hard labor, Matt, or something that might not work? Yeah, it's fun. It's better than just going right to the bottle. Better to be working with bricks than go right to the bottle, which is what could possibly happen here if I don't have something to do. First up, in terms of the big question, what is our particular existence? There's 2 ends of the sliding scale. There's eternal existence, potentially always has been, always will be, and all the way down to the other side, of course, is the Stephen Hawking atheist position. Now, we don't need to talk about that, but you might need a laugh. It's funny. It's just, you came from nothing. You came from an explosion in deep space. You were fish, marmot, monkey man. You were monkey man. then you evolve. Okay, but then you going to be, after all that, millions and millions and billions of years, then you going to be nothing on the back. After all that, my great-grandmother was a marmot, and I'm going to be nothing. You're going to be nothing on the other side. Okay, stop laughing. This is a serious conversation. Stop that. Put those spitballs down. Stop laughing. So you came from nothing. This is the bookends. You came from nothing. You're going to be nothing. But in the between, you have a being somehow that's worried about its existence and is aware of itself. Well, the scientists say that's a trick of consciousness, you see. Okay. On the other end of the sliding scale is potentially a being can only be aware of its own existence, also afraid that its existence could come to an end if it actually had a long-term or even eternal existence. See, there's a whole lot to lose. That's potentially what adds up to this fear of death that we just can't completely kick. Some of us have done better than others in terms of you can't completely kick it. We have limitations as long as we're in this body, in this avatar. But if you have a lot to lose, you've been here a long, long time. I don't know, trillions of years, or I don't know, what calendars did they use outside of the snow globe? But there is none probably, or potentially you always have existed. Then the fear of death is then accentuated that the end of what you just instinctively know is something timeless could come to an end. In my opinion, that could be the main reason this entire reality exists. Or the top 5 if you're doing a countdown, to have an eternal being actually experience the end of its existence. Not really, but to put it on the table, to feel what it would be like, of what it would, because we don't know. We have to be, this whole reality doesn't work if we don't come in here, Tommy, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid. One of the biggest arguments I have with other YouTube channels, it's not fair. What kind of school you come in blind? Or you have to come in blind here to everything, or the whole thing doesn't work. I don't understand why it's so simple to see that. This experience doesn't work if you have a notion as to who you were before. I don't know why other channels just can't get this through. It's so simple. Yeah. There's a lot of examples. We need some real pedestrian examples in this regard. It's so obvious. If you knew any little bit about who you were, you wouldn't basically get out of bed in the morning. It's a part of my book. You tell your boss, I'm not doing that work. And by the way, tell him he dresses like a gigolo. And by the way, tell him his breath smells like garlic. That scene from Ocean's 12. It'll be like that. You wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. Perhaps the main thing this dark reality strives for is to be believed in. Reality itself needs to be believed in. It can't be believed in any way if you have a notion as to who you were before coming in here. It's a bad example, but a 10-year-old wants to go to the Brigantine Castle. Remember the old Brigantine Castle north of Atlantic City, one of the biggest haunted houses of all time. Scared the crap out of me as a kid, even thinking about going there. Was too scared to go in as a little kid. But let's say you were there, your father helped build it, and you saw all the styrofoam blocks putting in place. You saw everybody getting their makeup put on. You saw how the trapdoors were made. Would it scare you? No. What the hell is this? This is bullshit. But if you woke up into it as a 10-year-old, maybe you had amnesia or whatever, you're knocked on the head by a cantaloupe or something, and you woke up in the middle of Brigantine Castle, it would scare the crap out of you. That's what we're going through. The Damien Rice song, Cannonball. Stones taught me to fly. Stones taught me to fly. Life taught me to die. Life taught me to die. No comprehension of death, which in this sense, comprehension of the end of existence being snuffed out. No comprehension of it potentially in terms of what you were before here. When you come in here, you can be the most confident person in your religion, and you could have everybody has a little bit of fear of death. That is one of the main reasons, if not the main reason of this entire reality. I know I said very definitively, per emails, that Violet has no fear of death. It's just a way of saying something. I think she got farther than almost anybody possibly could. Can you have no fear? I don't think it's possible in this avatar body of limitations. I think she got farther than anybody almost possibly could. It's just a way of saying something, to express, I didn't mean no fear. I don't think that's possible in this whole reality experience. Over the years, as we've talked about old soul versus new soul, etc., I think the context of what most of us are talking about is not like how old we are in terms of comparing it to the universe, or it could all be timeless in some regard. Old soul, new soul, meaning the work that still needs to be done inside of this type of place or inside of material realms that are similar, whatever else. Who knows? Is this seventh grade in a middle school? And we got, oh no, eighth grade is a high school in Mars, or not really Mars, but you know what I mean, like some other. We have to do more material planes, and we have to. Oh gosh, we have to. See, who knows what grade this is? Are we done? We like to think that we can do enough, or Tony's notion of the simultaneous incarnation, to do enough now, take advantage of what we can see, take advantage of the differences between us and the people around us to be done with all this. I think that is possible, but we don't really know. Do we? I mean, we would call ourselves old souls simply because we think we're really close to being done. I don't think if I call my friend Tony a new soul, it means he's got a lot of work to do. He puts on the news and believes it all, for example. Doesn't mean I was spawned trillions of years before him. We both could be attached to something that's truly timeless. It's just the people that can't see through anything here, we call them young souls because they just have a lot of work to do. And that's best case scenario. We hope that's the case, and they're not a different type of entity, or what we call an NPC. Matt, what's lower, if the NPC truly exists, or the type of entity that, say, Melvin and Bezos are, or the billionaires, or lone scum, Musk? And who's lower? Who's fiddling Ben's low? Look, I don't know, but according to Tony, the NPC is lower. According to Tony, the sequential incarnation, the minions here that are acting out what the dark reality wants, whatever, he basically implied we were there. I mean, we've gone past that. We've taken the leap, left all of the protections and the comforts and the addictions behind to come in truly Tommy. But those sequentials, I don't like to, like I've said many times, I don't like to think Melvin and Bezos could get to where we are, or, I don't, just like that, my favorite scene in 16 Candles when Molly Ringwald says to Ted, you could come back next summer a completely normal human being. Yeah? So Melvin, if you're listening, after all you're done with all this Microsoft stuff and just screwing people over and the endless fraud and trying to pretend you care about the health of certain countries in Africa and you care about health through Action Jacksonation, when you're done with all this fraud, you could, not next summer, you could come back maybe in another lifetime as a completely normal, at least for this reality, we'll use that term, human being. And right now Melvin's listening to me and he's going, yeah, you think? Melvin and Bezos, according to Tony, they have that opportunity if they leave their addictions behind and they want to screw people over and they're just the role player here, whatever. They, according to Tony, whatever. I'm not bowing down to everything Tony's ever told me. Okay, we have some disagreements, but he said they're much higher because the NPC is like they don't have a higher self, where Melvin and Bezos do, but it's a higher self that's like game addicted and playing it safe. So I don't like to think that the nice person that works down at the DMV and said, are you happy with your picture? I don't like to believe that they could be lower than who we think are the lowest of the low, lone scum, Melvin, Bezos, Santa Claus Schwab, whoever the current head of the EU, Christine Lagarde, sleeps upside down in between stalactites or something. We don't like to think that those people could be actually more spiritually advanced. According to Tony, they are. Adding this back in, not more advanced spiritually than you and me, a person like Bezos, more than if the NPC exists. And Tony believed, or just he knew that he said, there's a whole bunch of people here, their souls, they have a soul, that soul needs to animate a body. A body doesn't work without some sort of a spark. A car engine doesn't start up without a spark plug, but it does not have a relationship with a higher self, something that's beyond this place. He talked about these sequentials like lone scum. They have he called it a different relationship with higher self, and not completely blind to their situation, not completely blind or Tommy as to how things work here. It's how they're able to stay in power. The stuffed Lenins or the Humpty Dumptys of, say, the library at Alexandria. Just ancient knowledge carried forth. I mean, what a bunch of bull crap. So, everything, all the ancient knowledge burned. If anything did burn up, well, they just made copies of it and they have it right now in their own basements and in the Vatican Library. Okay, so they have an understanding of who they are, to a degree, their role, and how this reality works. So they can, quote, at least for the metrics and standards of this reality, get ahead. But from our perspective, most of us here, I can assure you, speaking for the old guard, going, well, so what? So what do they get for themselves? A Bentley, a car, a wealth, of fame? Who cares about those things? The old guard, we don't care about those things. To maneuver in position for the things of this world in such a transient, short-term lifetime is a joke. What a complete waste of time. You want an analogy that at first will seem ridiculous, but if you back up far enough and look back on what this lifetime is and how short it is in terms of the scheme of all that ever was and all that ever will be, our lifetime to something that's like permanent, like the Rock of Gibraltar, that moved, by the way, if you're Mandela affected, it to the Rock of Gibraltar, our life is a joke. It's millions of times shorter than that Mayfly, one of those little fruit flies that lives less than a day. So the dumb example is, let's say somebody wakes up on a beach and they don't know who they are, right? Where did I come from? I'm Tommy. Your name's Matt. And somebody's there. You've woken up on Club Med here. Look around all the things you can do. It seems beautiful, doesn't it? Yes, it seems very beautiful. Over here, there's water sports and there's water skiing, and you don't have to pay for anything. There's wonderful food and a buffet over here, and you can get from Riza Marajaron or whatever over here. And how long do I have to enjoy all that's here? And this is assuming a reality where it's 100% enjoyment, not the late bills and the people screaming at you and the boss and the sicknesses and the diseases. Assume it's all good. Like, how much time do I have? You have 5 minutes. What? 5 minutes to enjoy? So would the person, would they run to the water sports and try to get in as much as they could in the 5 minutes, and then try to get the Mirage Aron in, and then try to get to the buffet with just 30 seconds left and shove food? It doesn't make sense. It's a bad example, but whatever. I'm not re-recording it. To just run around the Club Med, running around this reality, if lifetime is only 65 to 85 or 90 years, is the same thing. It's actually much more pathetic. All this meaning, if you knew you just had the 5 minutes, would you run to get in the water sports? Or would you say, okay, I have 5 minutes in this reality. Who am I? Where did I come from? Let me look around a bit. I don't have a lot of time, but I'm not going to run to the water sports. That's what this reality offers, is endless water sports or whatever, in a way. You're going to trade the stock blips in the 5 minutes. You have only 5 minutes. You're going to say, okay, who am I? Where did I come from? Look at these things called fingers. Look at the sky. I don't have a lot of time here. What's important to take in that 5 minutes? In terms of all that ever was and all that ever will be, 85 years of life isn't 5 minutes. It's 5 milliseconds of 1,000th of a second. It's that. So to run around and try to get in the water sports here. Not that you should never enjoy yourself. I'm not saying that. I'm saying pursuing the things that this reality says should be pursued, like the second beach house and the wealth and and all that bullshit. Of course, we see right through it. Who am I talking to? I know, but it's fun to talk about. So getting back to the main premise of what's being proposed here, basically, once again, the greatest news of all time. Is it possible for a being to be aware of itself and to worry that its existence could come to an end if it came from nothing and is going to be nothing? I propose it's not possible. It's not possible for something that came from nothing to have an awareness of itself and worry that its existence could come to an end if it is truly going to nothing, if it came from nothing. I don't think that bridge or that the one does not line up with the other. I don't see that that's possible. To have a fear of death, of course, stems entirely from worrying about the end or the potential end of one's existence. And there's a lot of other factors. Maybe if not that, did I pick the right religion or did I pick the right God? If I picked wrong, could there be punishment? Or all of that worry is not possible in something that came from dust, outer space dust, that is going back to the dust in the wind. Kansas, those frauds telling millions of people, getting millions of kids and youngsters to believe that all they are is dust in the wind. They should be ashamed of themselves. If anybody wants to take a 2-minute break from the reality discussion, I've got a pretty good story. I got to tell you, it has to do with Kansas. When I graduated Penn State, 8-semester dean's list, of course, what was available to me was opening and closing an electronics store in the middle of Reading, Pennsylvania, and getting camcorders returned, and that was wonderful. So I'm glad I worked so. Thanks, Not Nilk. Glad I worked so hard at Penn State. It was a recession. Either that matter, you're just a dribbling fool in the interview. Okay, Silo in Reading. Now, some of the guys that work there, the salesmen, kind of a bad element, but they, some of them were, I don't know, like they hung out at Al's Diamond Cabaret, for those that know what I'm talking about. And some of the people, there was a club in Reading, I don't know if it's still around, called The Silo, where these bands, it was the has-been bands like Rick Springfield before the has-been band thing was so big. Kansas was big in the late 70s. I was at Silo in 1993. They were coming to Reading, going to be at the Silo. This would happen every so many months. Somebody would ask for directory assistance, and they'd call Silo, the electronics store. Well, these guys knew how to play with the people that were calling. Is there any tickets left to Kansas? Hold on, because they know some of the guys like to have fun with this. Was the guy named Rick? I forget. His name was Rick. Rick said, and he loves to play this out. He knows they're calling the wrong place. Oh, you're looking to the Kansas is the last show at the Silo tonight. You're looking, yeah. Is there any way? Yes, there's 2 tickets just for you, sir. I'm seeing it done. It's so bad. He says, I was, I'm 22 years old. I'm not going to say that's wrong. I mean, I thought it was funny at the time. They're still funny, I guess. He says, you approach the window and you say those tickets were set aside for you, and you're all set. Do I? No, you pay when you get there. Oh my goodness! No, I only saw this a few times. They would call Silo when they're looking for the Silo. I hope it still exists, because these places that host these 2-bit over-the-hill acts. I mean, think how big of a business they're doing in the stalled century in the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, LaToya Jackson will be coming. Well, actually, the reason she came to my mind is she came to Al's Diamond Cabaret after her little shoot, and she wouldn't take it all off like they're used to at Al's Diamond Cabaret. Bring your own beer, a real blue-collar place. And they started to throw bottles. I wasn't there, but they certainly talked about it. The guys that were there, they started to throw bottles at LaToya. I'm talking about an incident that happened at Al's Diamond Cabaret with LaToya Jackson appearance, where she just wouldn't take the pasties off. It's a real news event, Bot. Sorry. Then what about the NPC, Matt? Yeah, that absolutely needs to be addressed for this all to work. Okay, the NPC may be more afraid of the end of their own existence, but is it like we were saying, completely on their own and isolated? The NPC came from nothing, or Stephen Hawking's Big Bang, and will go to nothing on its own. It's its own entity. See, that's not the way at least Tony described the NPC. It doesn't seem to jive with how others talk about the NPC. The NPC, it has something you would call a soul, if this exists. I don't know if the NPC exists, but it would have to have something, and Tony described it this way, as a soul, something to animate the body. It doesn't work on its own without this spark of some kind. So where it's drawing its energy from, or at least where it draws its initial spark, is kind of from the same place. Tony called it, I think he called it the nature spirit. But it's deriving something, I say locally, or that's more confined to this place. So even the NPC, to a degree, is coming from something that could potentially be timeless, or at least very, very old, that was created when this reality is created to serve its purpose. It's part of something that should be afraid of losing its existence because it's always old. It's not just as simple as before birth, nothing, after death, nothing. Then it makes sense. The NPC is very afraid of its death. The NPC is probably more afraid of its death. The NPC does not want to lose this world. It tries to cozy up and get closer to this world. But it doesn't disprove what we're saying. Because if the NPC exists, what is the spark? What's the generator plant, or the animation of the soul, or whatever they need for that body to function? So it's not a one and done, and every NPC is operating on their own with their own kind of power plant. At least it makes sense to me, right? If the NPC exists, well, it doesn't have in the same way a spiritual nature that you and I have. It may be more isolated or confined to this place. but no, pile up muscles and bones and flesh on a table. It doesn't work without that electrical spark that in some ways related to soul. Using the NPC to poke holes in, say, this theory or what's being proposed here doesn't work because even the NPC didn't on its own think of somebody that my third grade teacher was an NPC for sure, whatever. That entity is not standing on its own, first off. Its energy or spark of soul is derived from somewhere. Somewhere could be like locally. On its own, it didn't come from nothing or the Stephen Hawking's Big Bang, form on its own, be a living entity, and then go to nothing. It has to be part of something else. All of us have to be. I'm part of something else. You're part of something else. It's all, what are we part of something else of? I don't know if that made any sense. But obviously, no consciousness or awareness or beings like us form from dust floating around in outer space. I mean, I've never heard of The Color from Outer Space, the horrible Nicolas Cage movies, The Color from Outer Space. I never heard of the animated soul and spiritual being from outer space. I mean, give me a break. I mean, who the hell? Most people believe this. You've got to be kidding me, folks. Here are the chances we're derived from dust particles and a Big Bang. 0. By this notion or thinking along these lines that I don't believe any being is doomed. There might be beings at different levels. Even the NPC with a soul derived from whatever, Tony's nature spirit, it's still soul, right? It's still something very special. It's not dust particles that came together. And that maybe it just, I don't know, maybe we're more advanced. I don't think anything is truly doomed if it in any way relates to soul or what can animate a body. I think our whole community's been a little too harsh on this potential NPC class if it exists. I mean, we could be here as role players ourselves in a way to help the NPCs. Who knows, right? Who knows? We always say this whole reality's here for us, the minions. Maybe the minions are here to show us how not to act. We're here in a way to help the NPCs. Maybe. You never know. Well, when do they graduate, Matt? I don't know, 40 or 50 trillion years? I think one of the things we have to be most careful about is the one size fits all. That's what one of the main tricks of this reality is. Everybody here is the same. One size fits all. There's a famous document somewhere that says in its opening lines, all men are created equal. You know what? No. Different types of entities. I have to go rewatch the Disney movie Soul, even though I dropped my Disney Plus, like I hope everybody in the world has dropped their Disney Plus. But that's very interesting. That whole experience, Little 22, and there's a very interesting movie with some very interesting themes, no doubt about it. I mean, there's some truth drops there as well. But we think, it's just about us, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's completely and entirely about the NPC that does have a soul. They just don't have a spiritual connection the same way you and I do, as it's been described to me. I have no personal interaction with this, or I don't fly out of body the way some of you do, the way it's been described to me. A bridge out of here. So I would love to go back and rewatch Soul and to say, is this the NPC experience? Which is the going into the light versus not going into the light, the NPC experience. Either way, the main takeaway is this reality, one of the main tricks is one size fits all. Even one religion. This God, you have to pick the right God. Well, maybe you pick the right God for yourself. Why does that have to apply to me? One of the main tricks of this reality is it tells everybody one size fits all. Even what you eat, milk and cheese and 5 vegetable food groups, not good for everybody. No, all over. There's more differences here in terms of people, even in terms of entity or spiritual or soul differences. I think that they would ever want anybody to even think about. We're not all the same. So whatever we have these dilemmas, every single time that go into the light or not go into the light's been discussed in, quote, our community, I assure you not one time has anybody ever said, well, does that apply equally to each different type of entity that's here? I can almost assure you that's never been put on the table. So how intelligent was the conversation to begin with? Remember in Batman, Bane, what happens if we remove the mask? It would be extremely painful for you. What happens if I choose the wrong religion? Well, it depends what type of entity you are. You picked Muhammad and Allah. You picked Jesus and God. Well, you picked all right because you picked for yourself. Why does one size have to fit all? That's the height of ignorance. Rule of opposites comes up every time. The reality overwhelmingly says, in terms of religion, you have to pick right. Is Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism and other religions say, oh, everybody's fine. You might not pick this, but everybody else is good. I doubt it. I didn't take the comparative religion class at Penn State, but I doubt it's like, hey, you don't pick us. Oh, you're good. You're still good. I doubt it. Rule of opposites. If that's what the world puts forth, then it's just the opposite. That maybe you pick for yourself and it actually works. And you're not damned and doomed if you picked another religion. How do you know Jesus isn't best friends with Muhammad? How do you know? Honestly, so rigid in viewpoints. Maybe there's like, who'd you get to convert today? Honestly, 4 days ago, Jehovah's Witness knocked on my door. Who'd you get today? Oh, we're getting more people on the side of God, Christianity, the Old New Testament, Jesus, and Muhammad's like, yeah, I lost you. I'll get you next week, though. Maybe they're best friends. Why is it so blasphemous to put that out? Oh, so rigid in everybody's thinking, so pathetic. Guess what? Rule of opposites again. Strict thinking that is completely intransigent, open to nothing, and dogma is not the way. I just fallen back to the rule of opposites, which has never been broken. So if you think your religion is right for you, it might be. It probably is. But why is it assumed 100% it has to be right for me? Do you understand? There could be more factors at play here than you might be aware of. Is that we come into this world completely aware of everything? Well, since we're aware of almost nothing, then there could be other factors. I could be wrong too. I keep that on the table. But at least keep on the table, it's not as rigid and as one-sided as you may think. We'll close with this little fun side item. Looked at this in the past as a Mandela effect. I believe it is, absolutely. It's not an anchor effect for me, but it's very, very strong. This reality reflects not almost the same level, but Adam's hand is almost above God's. If there's any proof at all that the creeps are responsible for the Mandela effect, I don't think they are. It could be a side effect to something else that they're doing, a side effect that they can't control, but I don't think they're responsible for it. But if there is any evidence of that, it's this, putting God lower than man. But look at the cover of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's Dogma, and look at the position of God's hand versus Adam's. Of course, this is what many of us remember. Thanks for listening.